You're listening to Radio Blah Blah with Jeff and Jeff.
Here it is, episode 3 of Radio Blah Blah. Jeff Scott here in New Brunswick, Canada, and over in Nova Scotia, Canada, my good friend.
Jeff Gray, cool Uncle Jeff.
How's it going, Jeff?
You don't like that.
I don't like the cool Uncle Jeff?
No, you don't like it.
No, because I know the guy meant me. Right? I know he meant me. And you jumped on it. You stole it before I had a chance. We could have been the cool Uncle Jeffs, because he did say they are like your cool uncles.
You only
everything
know
everything was plural there, Jeff.
You only know that because I told you that.
I read it.
But my nephew had already said I was cool.
Oh, no, my nephew told me I was cool decades ago. Yeah.
Yeah, but that would confuse people, though. I mean, I really only did it was so, like, when we had, everybody was saying, which Jeff is talking. They didn't know which Jeff it was, Mr. Lebowski.
Yeah, that one hasn't stuck yet, has it?
Well, we haven't used it.
No, we don't. But anyway.
Chris Medic still owes you.
You know why? I don't like White Russians. That's why. I can never be Lebowski.
Okay.
He drank too many White Russians.
Okay. I thought you were showing your bigotry there, but I guess it was just a drink.
No bigotry. No.
It's
funny.
What's in a White Russian?
What is that?
What's in a White Russian? Vodka?
What's in a white? I think it's Kahlua and milk.
Is that a
and vodka?
That's not a Kahlua.
Oh, there's milk in it. I know it's got milk in it because it's.
It has some milk. Yeah.
Well, has got to have vodka because it's a Russian.
Right.
I thought it had Kahlua too. Maybe it's just vodka and milk. God, that'd be gross. Yuck. Anyway,
I can see why you don't like it.
I love the part where he goes into the supermarket looking for a quart of milk. Right, he buys 1 quart of milk and he writes a check for $1.32 for a quart of milk.
I can't actually say I've ever seen it.
And he's there in his bath. He comes in a bathrobe. He's got like a t-shirt and shorts on. They're probably just like jockey shorts, right? And he's wearing this bathrobe and slippers. And he goes in to the supermarket dressed like that to buy 1 quart of milk so he can have a White Russian. You've never seen it? It's a good film. Coen Brothers.
What's it called?
It's called The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, I've heard that before, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good film.
All right.
Anyway, our topic tonight is... What are we going to call this one?
The Pearly Gates.
The Pearly Gates.
Yeah. There's a lineup at the Pearly Gates lately.
There is a lineup. But, gosh, we've lost a lot of legends in the last little while. Our last show, if you didn't check it out, episode 2, was a tribute to David Bowie.
Right.
And I guess tonight what we want to do is just pay tribute to an awful lot of musicians who have left this world in just the last month or 2 months.
Well, for you and I, the older we get, the more this is going to happen.
Well, this is it. I mean, death, I guess on the internet, people are reacting to this like, oh my God, what's going on? What's going on? But I mean, death is nothing new. People die. Thousands of people die every hour around the world, so... But these musicians, they're not immortal. Their time has to come. It
just seemed to be becoming a little bit fast and furious over the last little while. But
it's almost it's sort of a cruel pattern. I mean, so many great musicians have gone in the last little while. You can't help but notice.
Well, yeah. I mean, is there anybody, before we get to the people who actually recently died, is there anybody that you look back on that died in history that you say, geez, man, they died too young? What would they have done if they'd have been able to stick around another 20 years?
Well, I got 2 little bits on that. One, I'll talk about Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yes.
Stevie Ray played in St. John's, Newfoundland when I lived there, and I was going to university. I think tickets were $25. I really didn't have that much money being a student, and I thought, I'll just catch him the next time he comes through, And that never happened. And a friend of mine who went and just took some amazing photos. He just brought in a big long lens. He was close to the stage. Just got some great shots of Stevie Ray. The other one I think about sometimes is a lot of these Woodstock people.
Yeah.
Woodstock generation. Not necessarily at Woodstock, but Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison. I'm thinking, had they lived, what would their music be like in the 80s? And I got to compare this to Grace Slick of Jefferson Airplane.
How so?
Who were amazing at Woodstock. If you watch their Woodstock performance, it is absolutely groundbreaking rock and roll. It's amazing. And then they kind of, evolved through the 70s and into the 80s. They became Jefferson Starship, then they just became Starship. And I think about those really bad hits they had in the 80s. Like, we built this city on rock and roll.
Oh, my God.
And I'm thinking, would Hendrix and Joplin and Morrison have done something that bad had they lived through the 80s?
I hope not.
No.
I don't think so, because, you know what? But I never would have thought. I mean, I guess I wonder how big an influence Grace Slick really was on Jefferson Airplane in the first place, other than she sang a few songs. So that might have been one of the reasons why it went so sideways. But you mentioned the name.
See, I try to imagine Jimi Hendrix in the 80s, and I can't.
Well,
I can't see it.
But he's one of those guys that he came before my time slightly. I mean, and I never really appreciated him because of the style of music that he played at the time. Now, when I listen to him now, I appreciate what he did at the time way more than at the time. And I think, wow, I wonder what kind of guitar player he would be today. Like, what kind of innovation would he have? Because he was like the rock star's rock star when he used to play live.
No one could hold a candle to him.
Well, just
everything until Eddie Van Halen came around.
But even Eddie Van Halen, yes, he could play. Well, Eddie Van Halen plays everyone under the table as far as actually shredding. But in terms of the stage persona, that and the raw animalistic movements and I mean, Hendrix didn't play everything note perfect or anything, but everything was so much feel, and it was almost like everything bent. Everything bent. The guitar bent.
Lots of whammy bar.
Yeah, or just
you can hide a lot of bad notes with a whammy bar and a wah pedal.
Well, it's true, but Janis Joplin was the other one I was thinking of too. Like you just said, it's like she to me was one of the most purest vocalists that could sing gritty music.
I kind of picture. Sorry,
no, I was going to say I can see her still. I would be shocked if she turned into a Jefferson Starship kind of project.
Yeah, but I kind of picture her in the 70s. Being kind of like almost turning into a Joan Baez.
Oh yeah,
or a Jim Croce. I mean, sort of toning it down a bit and going in that folk rock, looking for those AM radio hits.
I don't know.
I could almost see her doing that. But anyway,
but I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, she just was so edgy and so pure that she would be someone that said, oh my gosh, I wish that she still was around to hear what she would have done with it. But
so I'll ask you the same question: which deaths in the last 4 or 5 decades of rock and roll did you find interesting or noteworthy?
Wow, I didn't really think of it that way. I think mine have yet.
I don't know if that's. I'm not that sure. I'm not that sure if that's how you phrase the question.
Yeah, well, mine's not.
I'll throw it back on.
Wait, well, I started. Well, you hit 2 of them already. Which was I thought about Hendrix and I thought about Joplin. I didn't think about Stevie Ray Vaughan so much because he seemed to be stuck in that blues peg a bit. I think about Phil Lynott, right? I definitely do that because I was a huge Thin Lizzy fan. So when he died, he was Thin Lizzy, right?
Yeah, so, it's hard to do Thin Lizzy without Phil.
You can't do it, and I think and you just can't do it. So that's one person that's like that. I'd have to really think about it from a death perspective. Probably should just move on because I'm not thinking of anybody right at the moment that's coming in my head. But
I think what we want to do tonight is just pay tribute to some great musicians. I'm going to start right off with Glenn Frey because he's not that he's a greater musician than anyone else, but I think in terms of legend, not to downplay the other two that we want to talk about, but when I found out that Glenn Frey was gone, I thought, holy jeez, there's an American icon right there, or at least the Eagles, I think, are an American icon, and he was a big part of that. The great thing about the Eagles is that you had 4 very unique and different songwriters and singers. So, you could have Eagles songs that sound so different. I mean, Glenn Frey songs are nothing like Joe Walsh songs.
No, true.
That's hard to say. Joe Walsh songs. Because Joe Walsh has this sense of humor and quirkiness, whereas Glenn has that peaceful, easy feeling behind his songs.
Right.
And they don't sound like Don Henley songs.
Right. Well, that's what I had to think about, was like, okay, with the Eagles, 'cause I mean, I can't say that I'm an Eagles fan. You know what I mean? I would say
no, but you know what? No, not you. You can easily say that, but I'd ask you this: who can say they don't like the Eagles?
Oh no, okay. Well, I'll finish what I was going to say.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
What I was going to say is that while I'm not an Eagles fan, I would say very early on, I was very much influenced by the Eagles. Like I said, like as a guitar player, I mean, I think I've told the story before. Like one of the I started to play guitar many different times when I was a youngster and got bored because the songbook wanted you to play Jimmy Crack Corn, and I couldn't care. Right, so it was like it was basically what happened, and then one day.
What kind of attitude is that, Jeff?
Well, well, it didn't happen, right? So, but what happened was I don't know, a friend of mine in Canada, in Yarmouth there, you had the Eagles' Greatest Hits songbook, and I hadn't really heard. I'd heard the odd song of the Eagles, obviously on the radio, but when I got that songbook of the Eagles, and I could play, I started playing. I remember I was playing One of These Nights. I said, and it was just 2 chords that I hit. And I said, I could recognize them. But then I learned that whole songbook. So that was sort of like my entry level, learn how to play guitar stuff. It really got me into, and you think about it, they'd had an Eagles Greatest Hits. What year was that? That was like
75.
Like, oh my God.
Greatest Hits by 75.
Like they were just getting started.
Yep.
But and it was such a different, like you said, and then I kind of lost them a little bit as they went forward. I liked the New Kid in Town.
I love that.
But, I wasn't a big fan of the Hotel California stuff. Like, Life in the Fast Lane. And it's just too corporate for me.
Yeah.
It didn't have this, I don't know, it just didn't seem to have the same. And then everything they did individually after that, I didn't like as much either.
No, their 80s solo efforts just seem so...
Boys of Summer and stuff like that.
That's the one I was going to mention. Boys of Summer, I really do like. That's got a very interesting guitar sound on it.
I didn't like
but
it.
Almost everything else those guys did solo in the 80s is just...
very poppy, very radio-driven. But
I think there was some magic when the 4 or 5 of them got up on stage together.
Well, yeah.
Some definite magic going on up there. And the point I was trying to make was, I think Eagles is one of those bands where everybody is a fan. I don't mean a fanatic,
right,
even though the word fan comes from fanatic. I think everybody likes the Eagles. I'm sure there's some people that don't like them, but it's just one of those bands that you don't need to follow them because it's almost like they're the soundtrack of your life.
Yes.
New Kid in Town. When I hear that, it puts me in a place. In 1976, I don't know, it just reminds me of Easter, that time of year, and that song just seems to be on 10 times a day, Hotel California. It just puts me in so many different places. Like you play the Eagles' Greatest Hits, and that is the soundtrack of the 70s. And you can put a memory with almost every one of those songs. That's what it is for me, and I think a lot of other people would probably could probably agree with that.
Well, I agree with it. I was going to say was the New Kid in Town was actually my life. I mean, I was the New Kid in Town.
That's right.
When I moved to Yarmouth. 1976.
Oh, this is the same year.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I moved there, and I was like, I came from a fairly good-sized city in Massachusetts to a little town of Yarmouth, and all of a sudden I was getting all this attention from all the girls, and that didn't happen to me before. I had this Boston accent. I was a really good basketball player, so I was a superstar.
You might as well come from Mars.
I was a basketball player. I immediately was the star of the basketball team. I played baseball, but you know what? And then it wanes.
Yeah.
So I thought that song always resonated with me because there's always a new kid in town, right? Yeah. So, and that's what really resonated with me was that I was a new kid in town, and I could relate to the kid in that story when the newest new kid came to town.
Yeah.
And that happened too. So, but those Eagles songs, who doesn't? I mean, as a guitar player, I love playing those songs at parties. If people know the songs, like Another Tequila Sunrise, all those, all that stuff is so beautifully written. The harmony, the Eagles were the backup group for Linda Ronstadt, weren't they?
Linda Ronstadt, yeah,
right.
They were put together as a backup group to go on tour with Linda, and then they decided they just wanted to do it their own way. And Linda was out out on her own and put together another band. I think they were called Stone Pony. But yeah, and I think that at very, very early on, Bob Seger had a short stint in that band.
Really?
There's a photograph. I posted it there on Facebook there a little while ago. But there's a photograph. It's got Don Henley in the picture, and it's got Glenn Frey. I don't even know if I recognize the other two guys. And Bob Seger was in the band.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if he did any recording with them, but there was a short partnership with Bob Seger.
I had no idea. But I think the reason it came to me when I mentioned Rinda Ronstadt was the reason. I mean, I thought about how solid they were musically, but also in totality. Like they have beautiful unorthodox
harmonies.
Unorthodox. Even on the basic of basic songs. There's so much fun. Like I love singing to those songs, and I'm not a big fan, but I love to sing to those songs.
Well, here's how iconic their harmonies are, and I'll give you two examples.
Yeah.
One, a friend of mine who's a singer, she bought this vocalizer. It's a digital effect.
Right.
And it basically takes your lead vocal and starts adding harmonies. And one of the patches is called Eagles.
Oh, wow.
So whatever it does, it finds, alternate pitches in such a way that it makes you sound like the Eagles.
Yeah.
The other example is, if you remember the Bat Out of Hell album by Meatloaf.
Yeah.
On the song, I'm going to say 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Might be the other one. But anyway, what they were looking for the harmonies to sound like the Eagles. They intentionally went for that. And on that show, Classic Albums, where they actually, start muting tracks and listening to things, they were just listening to the harmony singers. And they got it. They nailed it. It sounds just like the Eagles. They got the sound and just nailed it.
Wow.
And that's what they were going for. It was very intentional.
Wow. Yeah. I knew those. I mean, obviously, I know those things work. I didn't realize they had patches set up that way, but they were. That's what I think. There was a very distinct change in that band. Like to me, right after, just right around Hotel California. That's when the change happened for me in that band, and it became more just a different sound altogether, and a different sensibility, and much more poppy.
I think it's a matter of who's in the band and who's writing for the band as well. I mean, to me, the most diverse members of that would be Glenn Frey and Joe Walsh.
Yeah.
You take Joe Walsh songs like "Ordinary Average Guys" or "Life's Been Hard." It's got a sense of humor to it, and Glenn is very country sounding.
Yes.
Lion Eyes and New Kid in Town, Tequila Sunrise. They all have that real easy, slow. You can just take a G chord, and I mean, anyone plays guitar has been forced to do Lion Eyes at a campfire.
Yes,
at least one point in time, right? Tequila Sunrise almost has the exact same rhythm and flow to it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the songs he did had that style, and Joe's were completely different.
A Canadian band that makes me think of the Eagles in a different way is Blue Rodeo, in terms of the way they write songs. A lot of those basic C, D, G, E minor, A minor chord progressions, and making great melodies and rhythms out of them.
I don't think there's a pop band out there today who hasn't been influenced by the Eagles in some way. If they're not trying to not recreate the sound, but try to get as successful a sound.
Right.
Or if not, just influenced your songwriting in some way, whether it's a hook or a line or a rhythm or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, their songs are just so successful.
So Glenn Frey, he was ill, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was only 66, 67?
Some of these rock stars, I mean, my parents, they're both 80. They're living their long longevity, and some of these rock stars are not getting that kind of...
I'd rather burn out than fade away. That's the line?
I guess so, yeah. Huh. I hope I die before I get old, talking about my generation. I think there's some truth to some of those lines,
Raise the Dead, Alice Cooper's tour in 2014? Maybe in 2013, 2014, he called it the Raise the Dead Tour. And what it was it was a tribute, though, to all these old people that he knew, and they always did cover tunes at the end, like they did take My Generation, and did a Jim a Doors song, and and Jimi Hendrix and different things like that. So yeah.
Well, let's mention Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots. Illness is one thing, but we saw a lot of rock stars in the late 60s, early 70s, right through the 70s, who just lost their lives to drugs and alcohol.
It's a wonder he lasted as long as he did.
Who, Scott Weiland? Yeah. It's not for us to judge or say.
I'm not judging. I'm just saying I'm surprised he's lasted that long.
Yeah, no, I'm trying not to judge, but drugs. You look at someone like Gene Simmons, who had an entire 40-plus career in rock and roll, and was able to not ingest once or imbibe once in alcohol or drugs. Just lived a completely clean lifestyle, and we don't see as much of that anymore. Scott Weiland is certainly an exception to the rule, but I think the pattern now is that I think some of these rock stars you kind of learn from history, And you look at people like Jim Morrison and John Bonham and Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, and the list goes on and on. Elvis Presley, and it's, drugs and alcohol. You're just going to kill yourself.
Right.
Yeah, and not just rock stars. We're looking at a lot of John Belushi. We're looking at TV and movie stars as well. When that money starts coming in fast, and those people need to keep going fast, where are they going to turn? They're going to turn to substances.
Yeah, and he just, Scott. Right from the get-go, every band that he was in, there was always rumors of him. He always had difficulties, right? And so I don't know. Certainly a large body of work, because he did. His
current band is called Wildabouts, and I'm not really familiar with them. I had heard of Velvet Revolver.
Yes,
but. I think he'll be most remembered for Stone Temple Pilots. I think they're the ones that had probably the most recognizable music.
I would say. That's where he came to fame, right? That was in the '90s, and certainly, like you said, he went on and worked with Slash and Velvet Revolver, and then, but he just kept, like I said, having difficulties with substances. But I would see him as a really unique artist, and I can see why he was one of those bands that like Stone Temple Pilots had sort of different lives. They had their original incarnation, and then kind of went undercover for a while, and came back. And I loved some of their early stuff. I know you and I both like Sour Girl. Sour Girl has to be my favorite. I agree. Just love it. I'm actually friends with Sarah Michelle Gellar on Facebook. You are? Or not. I am. What's she up to these days? She spends a lot of time at home. She's really, her career, she's not Buffy the Vampire Slayer anymore. So anyway, she spends a lot of time at home. She's a mom, and she likes to bake, do different things, and she does a lot of other, public things as well. But she was quite upset with the death of Scott Weiland, and she's quite prominent in the video. Absolutely, for Sour Girl. Yeah, absolutely. She goes into that whole goth thing, and she was super hot in that video. Oh, it's beautiful, and it's very sensual between the two of them. Yes. But it's not pornographic. It's just not at all. It's just sensual. Yeah. It's erotic. It's erotic without being tasteless. Yeah, for sure. Just the way he's holding her and the way they kiss is very, very sensual. Yeah, he was. But that whole, they had a whole bunch of different things they did at that time. I couldn't even think of the names of them. Really weird guitar parts and really off the wall vocals. His vocals are really strong. And like I said, he fit really well, I thought, with Slash. In Velvet Revolver, they had some really cool songs that they did together, and so it's a tragic loss, but it's not one that's really all that unexpected. He like I said, I'm really shocked that he even lasted as long as he did. Right? He was 48. Wow, is that what he was? He's my age. Wow, but I didn't realize he was that young. Wow. Who else? There was a bass player who died in the last few days.
Who did he play with? I didn't recognize the name.
Oh God.
Who did they say he played with? He was in. Oh well, we should know these things before we start recording. But anyway, I think it was one of those things where, if there hadn't been such a string of rock stars dying in the last little bit, it probably wouldn't have got noticed. Because again, people kind of blow it up on Facebook and say, "Not another one."
Right.
You know, and then they plastered his picture. And the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young drummer died within the last couple of weeks. So anyway, these are mostly session people, but I think people are making a huge deal now because there seems to be sort of a bit of a lineup at the Pearly Gates. Yeah. What about Lemmy? What do you think of Lemmy?
Well, I didn't realize he wasn't. I mean, that one surprised me. Like I just remember last year I watched his. There was a documentary on him, and it was quite interesting because it was like he was living in an apartment in L.A. And just followed him around, and he was like just walking everywhere. And record stores.
If you can go into Ozzy Osbourne's home and photograph his family and what they're doing, I mean, you can photograph any rock star and what they're up to, and then someone will watch.
But this was really different. Did you see it?
You
should check it out. I can't remember what it's called.
Okay.
It's a really good sort of. It's not really a documentary. It's sort of like what's kind of is, but it just kind of, like I said, follows him around and just to talk to him, and he's very approachable. He's out in the middle of people all the time, and so I was really surprised when.
I was surprised at his age. He was 70.
Yeah. Well, he lived the rock and roll lifestyle, right? I mean, he definitely.
Now that one didn't surprise me because. Probably sometime in the last 6 months or so, someone had posted some footage of Lemmy on stage, and he was having trouble. They had just done about 2 songs, and he just wasn't feeling well.
Okay.
You know, and this was all over the internet for a while, and just Lemmy has to leave stage for illness or whatever. So it shows him just saying, I can't do this anymore, I gotta go, and he leaves the stage and takes off, and people are yelling, we love Lemmy, take care of yourself, that kind of thing.
Right.
So when I got the news that he had passed on, that didn't overly surprise me because, again, his age and had some health complications. But apparently he had a cancer diagnosis 2 days before he died. Now I'm sure he had it longer than that, but he got the diagnosis.
I mean,
but it was a very aggressive cancer. Anyway.
What I would say about Lemmy is that, like I said, I wasn't a huge Motorhead fan or anything like that. I mean, I liked some of the stuff that they did, and but he was sort of like, he always kept it real. Like, he was one of those guys that no matter what was going on around them, he just kept rocking and rolling. He never deviated. He's very much like AC/DC that way.
Yeah, see, to me, Lemmy's the kind of guy he's like a Zappa. He does what he does, and if people like it, that's great. And if they don't like it, fuck you.
Basically.
Excuse my French.
That's about it.
And he wasn't looking for hits.
Right.
Because Motorhead they're not going to play Ace of Spades on FM radio.
No. And I always remember the connection. There was, back in the 80s, one of the connections I remembered, like I said, I wasn't a huge Motorhead fan, but I remember one of the guitar players left Thin Lizzy and went to play Motorhead. Brian Robertson went to play for a very short stint. And but I guess he's like super loud and but I don't know. I guess it's to me, Jeff. Someone like Lemmy passing makes me feel older, as opposed to like the Scott Weiland doesn't, right? But just because like he's younger than me, I mean, but someone like Lemmy's like been part of, like you talked about Glenn Frey, they're part of our landscape, right? They've been part of the world that we know.
Well, you had an interesting thing to say about Lemmy and people who claim to be fans of Motorhead.
Me? Yeah. Well, I think there are bands out there, and don't get me wrong. I think that certainly Motorhead warrants some fandom. It's like people who want to be fans of theirs. But I think Motorhead's one of those bands that I found over the years that you talk to people, and you say, hey, somehow it comes up, and they say, oh yeah, what do you think? It's cool. Motorhead's a band that's everybody. It's cool to like them. Like, it's not cool not to like them. Like, Kiss is a band that was never really cool to like, but Motorhead's always been a band that people claim to be fans of, and then when you dig into it a little deeper, you find out that they just bought the T-shirt, and
Yeah.
or they thought they
Yeah.
bought the like what Lemmy Motorhead represented. I guess
Well, it represented the anger in rock.
Yeah,
and roll. It represented
yeah.
the raw, the energy,
yeah,
the
they were almost
the speed.
Yeah,
you
they were
know?
almost. I don't know. Is it a metaphor? The band itself was almost a representation, an incarnation of what it was all about, and that's what you.
Almost a
Like,
caricature.
that's
of
that's
themselves.
it. That's it. They're almost the.
Right.
And so there's people that like love Motorhead, and then I've only really met I've only really met one serious Motorhead fan in my whole life. And and you could tell because it was a guy in the call center I used to work in, and he was like, I had 15 people on my team, and there's 300 people in that center, and he was the only guy. He stood out like a sore thumb out of 300 people, and just the way he lived his life and how simple he saw things, and and he dressed like Lemmy, and he didn't act like Lemmy, but because he was on the telephone talking to clients about their finances.
Could you imagine Lemmy as a telemarketer? Right?
Thank you for that.
Listen to me, you fuckhead. Listen to me now, because I'm going to tell you, I got this great offer for you, so you shut up and listen, or I'll come in and punch your head off. Right.
Right. Well, how's that sound?
Yeah, sounds great to me.
Yes, I'll be Visa or MasterCard.
And I apologize for my bad.
That was
Lemmy
pretty good.
impersonation.
I thought it was good.
I was in high school, and our public library had this huge record collection. You can go in and sign out records. So I'd go over and start, pulling stuff out or whatever. That introduced me to a lot of cool stuff. Frank Zappa. I found some Frank Zappa records. I found some Heart records, and then I came across Motorhead live in Hammersmith. No, it was called No Sleep Till Hammersmith.
Okay.
And I said, just the I couldn't really tell what the band was. It was just this big. It looked like the inside of Kiss Alive 2. It was just this stage on fire, right?
Yeah.
So that looks cool. So I brought it home and put it on, and I'm thinking, oh my God, can this is like speed metal, right? Can it get any faster?
Yeah.
And then he starts singing, right? And I'm thinking, oh my God, it sounds like this guy just chugged. Yeah, it sounds like he just chugged a 40 of Jack Daniels and then started singing. I'm thinking, this is freaking great.
I just hurt myself.
Yeah, I know, and I loved it. And there were no Motorhead records in Gander to be found at all. So I was in St. John's on an Easter trip or something, and I went to the record store and I found Ace of Spades and the first Motorhead album, which is just called Motorhead. So I bought the two of those and brought it home and just loved it. It's got a real raw sound. Even stuff that's not really speed and fast like Ace of Spades. One of my favorite songs is called Iron Horse, Born to Lose, which has just got this really cool, moderate, kind of heavy, more like a Black Sabbath sound. But, I put it up on, just after Lemmy died, I put it up on Facebook. I said, what is Motorhead? Are they metal? Are they punk?
Kind of punk metal.
Or are they grunge?
They're just they're Motorhead.
They're Motorhead, exactly.
They're what grunge wanted to be.
It's like calling AC/DC a metal band. AC/DC is not metal.
Oh no.
You know?
Oh no, not even close.
Yeah, but anyway.
Oh, and neither is This Flight Tonight, by the way, just so you know.
Oh, right, by that Canadian.
Yeah. I thought about that after I said, that's metal? That ain't metal. Jeez, buddy, you've been sheltered.
Anything with a galloping guitar.
It's gotta be metal. That could have been the little drummer boy who said the same thing.
Yeah, that's right.
But I was, I always found that, I think Motorhead's one of those things you have to be in the mood for, and it's pretty grating.
Definitely.
And the classic Lemmy overdriven Rickenbacker basses. He distorted basses.
Well, this is like the beginning of Ace of Spades, right? Dung-ga-dung-ga-dung-ga-dung-dung-dung-dung-dung-dung. And I thought, is that a bass or a guitar?
Yeah. He plays.
And then you realize it's a freaking bass.
He plays bass like a guitar, really.
Yeah, that's the bass.
And then he's got that microphone. This classic. He get that microphone way up in the air, so he has to look
way up. So his head is always sticking up.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's a throat thing because he's definitely got a very unique vocal sound.
Well, he's an icon, simply put.
Oh,
and
no doubt about it. And you know what? You could put almost anyone else in Motorhead. It's like Ted Nugent, right? You can bring Ted Nugent down on stage. You can have anyone else behind him. Yes, it's nice to have Derek St. Holmes for those vocal parts, but I don't care who's on drums. I want Ted Nugent.
Right.
And it's like when you have Motorhead, you got to put Lemmy there. There's no one. If if
Well,
what's his name? If Clark and Taylor, well, Taylor died. If Clark and some drummer decide to get together and say, hey, let's do Motorhead. No.
No.
It's like trying to do Rush without Geddy Lee.
No, but
trying to do
Lemmy is
trying to do Thin Lizzy without Phil.
Yeah. I mean, no, Motorhead.
He is
he
the
is the
sound.
Motorhead, right?
Yeah.
As simple as that. So to me, someone like Lemmy, like I said, to me the biggest thing with Lemmy passing is that it's just another one of those things in this world that isn't there anymore that you used to take for granted, like like the Grand Canyon or the Bay of Fundy, that thing you go around.
They'll always be
Yeah.
there.
Well, as far as we know. So, but there you go.
Right.
Right.
Hand me that bottle.
That boat was a fucking Bay of Fundy.
Well, someone posted a joke. It might have been from that TV show. I don't know, but Lemmy's telling a joke, and he's just hard to understand,
Yeah.
right? And it got so far, and then I couldn't understand the last 3 lines, so I actually had to make. Some guy posted it, so I asked him. I said, "I don't understand what he says after whatever." And then he had to write the punchline for me. And then when I got the joke, I played it back and listened to it again. What's funny is Lemmy telling the joke. It's not that funny a joke. It's Lemmy that makes it funny.
That was the bulldozer joke, right?
The
The
what?
bulldozer joke. The one you said Dixie
Bulldozer.
Cup. Yeah, what do you call a sleeping bull?
I
A
don't know.
bulldozer.
Oh,
Get it?
right.
Right. Yeah, so why did the cookie go to the doctor?
I don't know
Because
why.
he's feeling crummy. The bastard.
Right. Hand me that bottle.
Quick. Well, that's about as much of a tribute as we're going to do.
yeah.
What would Gene Simmons
Yeah.
say about Lemmy's passing? He went to the funeral, right?
Did
Yeah,
he?
I saw a picture.
Well, I thought it nice that Paul put up a picture of himself, and Paul Stanley put up a picture of himself and Glenn Frey.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Gene was at Lemmy's
Yeah,
funeral.
there was a
Okay.
photo. There was a photo of him and Shannon.
Well, where would Lemmy have been buried? In the U.S.?
Yeah, I think so because he
Or
was living in
England.
L.A.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Did you know that?
All those people come to U.S., don't they?
Well, some do.
you know, I mean, Lennon was a New Yorker.
Yeah.
I mean, God, he was one of the biggest New Yorkers ever
that's
was.
where the
right?
industry is, right? It's a little easier
Yeah.
for them to be anonymous too, right?
And Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, who were New Yorkers by birth, now they're Californians.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there you go. So they.
Well, what you asked me what Simmons would think of Lemmy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to think. It's hard to say what Simmons thinks of anything. I think he's a real soft teddy bear deep down inside. I think he's a real sensitive kind of guy, and he's a loudmouth and shoots his mouth off. But I think he's a real sensitive.
You know what
guy.
I saw on TV on YouTube last night? I don't know if you saw it,
saw
but his daughter Sophie auditioned on the X Factor.
Oh, that's old.
Oh yeah, is that right? Is it? I just saw
yeah,
that.
I saw that quite a few years
okay.
ago. Well, what it might have been, you know what? It might have been American Idol.
No, it was X Factor was the one I saw.
Well, like I say, what I saw a few years ago might have been American Idol. Now she's on X Factor. I don't know, but she had auditioned before.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
And I know Simon Cowell was one of the judges.
Yes, yeah,
Because I can remember him reacting and say, "What? You're Gene Simmons' daughter?"
yeah. That was on X Factor, British X Factor.
Was it
Yeah.
X Factor? Yeah.
She was like
Yeah.
19 or something like that. Anyway,
Yeah. She's not bad, but she's not.
I
great.
digress. So we digress because there was a connection there between Lemmy and Gene Simmons, but both being rock
Yes.
bassists, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we should do a show on bassists sometime. Because the bassist is such almost
I agree.
can be a forgotten, but there are very iconic bassists, and I'll just throw out a few names: Steve Harris,
Yeah.
Geddy Lee, Gene Simmons, Lemmy.
Yep.
Very iconic bassists. I wouldn't want to see Iron Maiden if Steve Harris
Oh
wasn't
God,
there.
no! He's the sound.
Right? If they had Bruce and all the guitar players and Nico, and they had everyone up there, and they say, "Oh, Steve couldn't make it tonight. He's sick." My God,
His sound though.
just-
I mean, he is the sound.
He
right?
is Iron Maiden. He's the sound.
Yeah, but his style is so.
And there's not too many bass players that have
no,
that, you know?
not that sound. Not that sound.
No.
I agree with you 100%. Right.
And it's hard to do that Steve Harris bass. It's a little slappy kind of.
Well, it's a combination. It's you're fingering the bass, but in a percussive way with speed.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
So with flashing balls.
Yeah. Well, we should do a show on basses
Yeah,
sometime.
there's all kinds of shows we could do.
Yeah. Well, we're up on about 40 minutes here, Jeff. So.
Yeah, we're going to turn the.
Anyway, that's just our little bit on Scott Weiland and Lemmy and Glenn Frey, and geez, we hope that our other idols are going to stay with us a little bit longer And my only regret is I didn't get to see some of these live. I saw Glenn Frey a few years ago with the Eagles in Newfoundland. I did not see Bowie. I regret that.
Well, you can't see them all, Jeff.
No, you can't. And the way I see it now is when you get a chance, go see them.
That's a good
Because,
idea, right.
like I say about Stevie Ray Vaughan, I said, I'll just see him next time he comes to town.
That's exactly it.
That's it. You got to see them when they're
You got
there.
it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to sign off.
All right, I'm gonna keep talking for a while.
You keep talking. I'm going to sign off. This will be a
Do you want
one-man
me?
show,
I've
Jeff.
done it before.
Can you harmonize with
I
yourself?
can. I can do 2 tracks.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm Jeff Scott in St. John, New Brunswick, Canada.
And I'm Jeff Gray in Nova Scotia, Canada.
But he's really cool, Uncle
Very
Jeff.
cool. So cool.
And I'm uncool,
I
Uncle
can't.
Jeff. I am an uncle.
Well, some would.
I'm just not as cool as Jeff
Some
Gray.
would agree with you.
All right, Jeff. Have a good
You
night.
too. Blah blah.
We'll talk to you next time. Blah blah blah
blah
blah
blah blah.
blah 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 blah.